Hello everyone, welcome to Lokmanya. My name is Mark Kinra and our today's episode is extremely special as we are celebrating the International Romani Day, which happened on 8th April. For those of you who are not aware about Roma or Romanis, I will give you a snippet. They are the first Indians who have emigrated from India. For details, go and check our website. There is an interesting article out there. For my interview today, I have a very special guest, and it is my honor to welcome Dr. Ian Hancock. Dr. Hancock is a professor emeritus. He was the faculty in the Department of Linguistics and English at the University of Texas since 1972. Dr. Hancock has authored 25 books and has enriching academic work, and he is no less than an authority in Roma studies. His first book, The Pariah Syndrome, opened the eyes of many Roma and others and brought to the light the operation of Roma in Europe. He has contributed more than 5 decades of his life for the human rights of Roma. Without wasting any more time, let's start the interview. Dr. Hancock, welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
My first question to you. Your work has enlightened Roma about their culture, traditions, language, and how they are connected to India. What can you tell us about your own upbringing and how did you deal with your own pariah syndrome? And what was your thought process which led you to go to the lens of representing the Roma community in the United Nations?
I was born into a poor Roma family in England. My father's people were Roma from Hungary who moved. There was a migration of Roma from Central Europe, from the Austro-Hungarian Empire,
Right.
in the second half of the 19th century. And some families went to England, and that was my father's connection. My mother's people are from the British Romani families. I was not brought up in any politically active way, but when a news item appeared in one of the British newspapers around 1969, it told of a small Romani family that was traveling in a wagon at a time when it was illegal for Romani people to stop unless they were on a government-provided site.
Right.
And there were very, very few of these in the whole of Britain. The wife was expecting a child. Anyway, the authorities were brought in to move the wagon. There was a confrontation. There was a fire. The paraffin lamp fell, and the children were killed, and it affected me so deeply that I wanted to do something about it, but I didn't know what to do. I thought these could be relatives of mine, and their only crime was being Romani, in my opinion. So I looked in the London telephone book, 4 big fat volumes back then. I looked up gypsy, and I found the Gypsy Education Council. I telephoned. I was invited to a meeting. I met some local Romani people and some non-Romani supporters who encouraged me to become involved.
Okay.
And that's how I started.
What was what was your thought process which led you to go to the lens of representing Roma community in UN? So can you tell me any personal story on those lines?
Well, we have always dealt with a very serious problem, and it's one that you are surely familiar with. And that is the fact that the word gypsy is applied very freely to all kinds of different human populations who, for the most part, have nothing to do with Romani people. But we are all called gypsy, and it's a word we are trying to get rid of. There are, for example, many nomadic peoples in India who are called gypsies.
Yes.
Some of them are related to us, the Banjara,
Yes.
Lamani people, but most of the populations who are Dalit and so on, historically are not related to us. In the West, the word gypsy is associated in the popular mind with a behavior. Anybody can be a gypsy if they dress in a certain way and they like music and so on. You know the
Like
storybook.
hippie, being hippie?
Yes, all of that. It's a literary stereotype, and it really hurts us. When I got my doctorate, I was pressured to become active. It didn't take a lot of pressure because I wanted to become active, but the argument was, you have a title now, you have a doctorate, and you will be listened to.
Yes.
And that is certainly true. If you sign your letter, Dr. So-and-so, it carries more weight than just Mr. or Mrs. So in 1971, we had, and I was still in England, I didn't leave until 72, but in 1971, we had the first World Romani Congress.
Yes.
It was actually threatened. The organizers received anonymous phone calls threatening disruption. And so at the very last minute, the location of the event was changed to another place. And we met, and there were a lot of Romani leaders from Europe, from the continent of Europe. And I met some quite big names. I have to say most of them have passed on now. I'm one of the few remaining people who were there back in 71. And there were other congresses subsequently, the second, third, fourth. And I attended some of those, and it was decided at one of our congresses that we would have more authenticity as a people if we had representation in the United Nations. Now, I have to say that the first World Romani Congress was jointly supported and created really by the World Council of Churches and the government of India. And our Indian connection has always been fundamentally important to us. So that was a good start back in 71. And as the number of educated Romani people grew, there were more people like me who grew up as Romani, who speak our language. We were able to learn about our history because for 200 years, the non-Romani experts have misrepresented our actual history. And we can talk about that later on if you want.
Sure.
But we had a much stronger case to make about our Indian roots. Madam Indira Gandhi also declared us to be Indians in exile. For us to become citizens of India is not so difficult. For most foreigners, it is difficult, but for us, we have a much better claim. We are a member of GOPIO. Are you familiar with the Global Organization of People of Indian Origin? So anyway, the Indian Institute of Romani Studies was established in Chandigarh. Padma Shri Rishi did that, bless his memory. So over the years, our ties with our ancestral homeland have become stronger. There are members of the Banjara community who attend our conferences. Our people go to India. So in order to apply to the United Nations, we had to make a case, which was not difficult to do, but we are a non-territorial people.
Right.
We do not have a physical, geographical country with a government and an economy and a militia and so on. Nevertheless, we qualify under some aspects of the definition as a nation. We are united by a common language, culture, and genetic history.
Right.
And we are all over the place. We are in so many different countries without one. And yet, after 1,000 years, we're still here. We have our identity, our language, and so on. So there is a very strong urge to survive as a people.
Right. Absolutely.
So a group of us, 4 of us, went to New York and submitted a petition for admittance initially into the Economic and Social Council. Our representative back then was the actor Yul Brynner,
Yes.
whose mother was a Romani woman.
Yes.
And he came with us, and because he was recognizable and the newspapers were interested more about him than us, actually, it was accepted. We did achieve membership in the Economic and Social Council, in the Department of Public Information. We were recognized as an NGO, and I had also been active in getting membership for us in UNICEF, and so that was also admitted into the whole UN description. However, we only were given observer status. A number of years later, a delegation came over to New York, and again, I spoke to the UN asking for elevated status, category 2 status, which is consultative. The vote was unanimous in the council meeting.
Right. So, sir, since that time, has there been any change with respect to the status, or is that the current one?
I'm afraid we lost that status because of disagreements in the International Romani Union back then. Europe was going through a difficult time, transitioning from communism to capitalism. The Eastern European countries where the largest concentration of Roma live,
Right.
there were struggles for leadership. There was some resentment that the seat of UN power, I say power in quotes, was in the United States and not in Europe. Um, we were paying an annual fee. I was paying it from my pocket. The Romani Union was not contributing. And eventually, because there were challenges, the connection was lost. There are now efforts to regain that.
Right.
Quite quite vigorous efforts, and I have no doubt that we will reestablish a firm connection. What happened was that the link to the outside world tended to focus on the European Union in the 90s, especially because the activity, the political activity, was in Europe. It still is. We have over 1 million Roma in the United States and Canada, but we are not as organized here as they are in Europe.
Right. Just to inform our viewers, Yul Brynner, the actor which Professor Hancock was referring, was the actor who played Ramesses in the Ten Commandments. Do watch it; it's a really nice movie. All right.
Yes.
Going to the next question, sir. Sir, what can you tell us about Roma culture and their similarities with Indian culture?
Well, there are many. Of course, we have Kali Durga, who is, we have our homage to her each year in May. She is taken from, she's called Kali, which means, in our language, it means black, and in your language too, presumably.
Yes.
And she is a black statue.
Right.
Kept in the basement of a church on the south coast of France. And she is taken and dipped into the ocean, into the water, just as she is into the Ganges in India.
Right.
Same. We have something called Dore, which means a red string.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is
even we have the Doreen. Yeah.
And Loli Lal is red.
Yeah. Yes.
The children have put on the wrist. We have in some places snake charmers.
Okay.
In some places we have the wrestling with oil.
Okay.
Heat oil.
Yes.
We have the concept of Bach, of luck. We call
Okay.
Bach.
Okay.
When somebody dies, they are still in the environment. Actually, they are called mule.
Okay.
Mule means dead people or spirit or something like that. And you can talk to them,
Okay.
and they will guide you.
All right.
And even if you do not observe the proper behavior in private, they can send you a message. I'll give you an example. All right.
Yeah, please.
If you're cooking,
Yes.
nothing should touch the ground.
Yeah.
If it is a fork or a knife, anything, you throw it away.
Absolutely. Yes.
If it is a piece of food, you throw it away.
Right.
Let us say that you are by yourself in the kitchen, and Romani men are excellent cooks, by the way. Let's say you are cutting aloo.
Right.
and it falls on the floor.
Right.
Nobody's around.
Nobody's
Pick it up and throw it in the pot. The Mullah saw you do that.
okay.
A minute later, you might cut your finger with the same knife.
Okay.
Not an accident.
Okay.
This is called Picaza. It is a message that you strayed from the right way of behaving. The upper body is separate from the lower body.
Right.
Your hands go from upper to lower all the time, so you wash your hands all the time. Certain foods we have are bakhtalihabe, which means auspicious food. These are generally, they are bright color food or strong flavor food. So a lot of pepper,
Right.
pickle, garlic,
Okay. Yes.
onion,
Right.
things like this are bakhtalihabe. And this must go into a meal.
Right.
At a meal, you serve the oldest men first, and then the oldest women,
Right.
and come down in age.
Yeah. You come down. You descend like that. Right.
Yes, some of our folklore is Indian. In a much more recent book I did called We Are the Romani People, I have a couple of proverbs which mention Marut, wind, god of wind, the horses, the 100 horses. These are all very old Hindu references, but they are still there.
That's great. That's great.
One more very obvious connection with India is the chakra on our
Right.
flag.
Yes.
This is our flag
Right.
with the wheel.
Right.
This is the Ashokan chakra.
Right.
Yes.
Great, sir. Great. A lot of similarities, sir. A lot of learnings. So, moving to the next question. What was your interactions with Indians who are in UK, US, and other countries, like while you were young and even during your academic career and even later on?
Well, some of us, especially as you go further east in Europe, some of us look Indian physically.
Right.
Some of us, like me, don't. So when I interact, back then especially, when I interact with Indians and start speaking some of my language, it's fun for me to see how surprised they are to hear the same words after 1,000 years that we are speaking in our homes. Now, of course, Indians, even Indians overseas, are more aware of who we are. And that has taken on some political dimensions. I can give you a short story, if you
Please
like.
go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
Some years ago, I got a telephone call late one evening from a man from Guyana in South America.
Right.
That country is divided between people of Indian descent and people of African descent.
Right. Yes.
And this gentleman said, I was listening to you being interviewed on the radio, and is it true that your ancestors came from India? And I said, yes, it's true. And is it true that you don't have a country? I said, that is also true. Would you consider Guyana as your country? And I said, well, I've actually been in Guyana and I loved it, but I've never thought about it as a country for Roma. Why do you say this? And he said, if you lived here and your people lived here, it would increase the number of Indians in Guyana and tip the political scales, which I thought was an interesting perspective.
Right. Really interesting. And obviously Indian. Indian way of thought process, I would say. You have visited India on a number of occasions. How was your experience in India?
This sounds cliche, but I felt so very much at home.
Mhm.
I didn't feel like a tourist or a visitor.
Okay.
It was even the body language of people on the street just looked familiar to me. And I loved it. I
Right.
really, really loved it. And I hope to go back.
We would really hope that you come back again soon here when there's no corona and everything
Yeah,
is safe and sound, and it will
yeah,
be really fun interacting with you, sir.
yes.
So coming to my last question of the interview today. Government of India has unofficially recognized Roma as India's children. Do you
Yes.
think that this is sufficient? And do you have any expectations from Indians and the government of India?
I do. I have very great expectations, particularly, well, in two areas. To speak in our support at the highest international levels when it becomes an issue, but also to help us financially. And I'll give you one specific example.
Right.
For many years, for more than half my life, I have been compiling the largest library of Romani-related materials. It was kept at the University of Texas when I taught there. When I retired, I moved it off. It needs a home. Now, my requirement is that it will be donated, not sold, to any institution of higher learning that has in place a permanent course in Romani studies. That's absolutely required, which includes Roma faculty, as well as non-Roma faculty, but it has to have Romani faculty. Now, a close colleague of mine, somebody you should also interview, Hristo Kuchukov. I'll send
Okay.
you the email connection.
Please do that.
He teaches, yes, he teaches at a university in Poland
Okay.
and is negotiating now with contacts in India for funding to pack up all of the archives, which are here in Texas, and ship them to Poland to a newly created permanent program in Romani studies. He is looking for, I think, 50,000 euros. He is negotiating with contacts in India. I don't know how well that is going, but if that is something to which you and your organization could add a voice, it would be very, very welcome.
Absolutely, sir. The whole purpose is that only, and to make sure that this interview goes out to to thousands and thousands of people all across India, especially, and also outside of India. And however the people feel connected, they contribute or they help them through their resources or through their own connects or contacts, however it can be. So it was really a pleasure to interview you. It was really nice. And so I should one thing I should say to you, you have a fabulous library. It's really just to have a look on to. It's really nice.
Yeah, yeah. Let me turn it so.
Oh, it's a huge, sir, huge,
It
humongous,
is. It is
fantastic,
huge.
sir.
It is
Really.
huge. Yep. So, okay. Um, that's it. I hope you are safe and well from the corona.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time today. Do take care of yourself, and sir, stay safe.
You too.
Bye bye, sir. Namaste.
Namaste.